Hey folks, last Wednesday was the season 9 finale of American Idol. Dewyze is the winner. I was a little bit disappointed, but can't really say I was surprised. Though, it didn't really feel like a competition at all. It just felt like one big Simon Cowell going away party. They didn't hardly show Crystal and Lee when it was supposed to be their night. Well, I know it was Simon Cowell's last episode, and I knew they were going to do something for him, but I thought it was kind of overkill. I really can't say I'm sad to see Simon go. You know, he hasn't really been on top of his game for the last couple of years, and hopefully with his departure they'll make a whole lot of changes, especially behind the scenes, because especially this last season, the contestants have had such old material to work with. I don't think the producers realize that there are 2 or 3 generations below them that would be completely satisfied with a nice mix, and it really showed big during this season's finale, which felt like, no offense to my senior citizen friends out here, but it felt like karaoke night at the retirement home. I mean, American Idol live from Shady Pines. It couldn't have gotten any older if Betty White had been the host, and actually that would have been much more entertaining. The show started out with the judges' intro, which was Simon's final intro on the show, of course. Randy Jackson tried to initiate a standing ovation, but it failed. I bet that was embarrassing. He was the only one that stood up. But what he really should have been embarrassed by was that hideous suit that he was wearing. But I mean, with the shirt with all the flowers on it, it looked like Meemaw's blouse. Next was the top 12 singing School's Out. I was a little bit disappointed by that song since when I saw them in the school uniforms. There was a part of me that was kind of hoping that they were going to do a Britney Spears medley, starting with Baby One More Time. Isn't that the song where she wore the school uniform? And in my dream show, the performance would have culminated in the shaving of Crystal Bowersox's head. You know, get all them unsightly knots out of her hair. So imagine my total disappointment when out came Alice Cooper. I thought to myself, my lord, am I watching American Idol or Wayne's World? I mean, really, Alice Cooper kicking the show off? Sadly, though, he was one of the more current entertainers of the night. And actually, the only reason it was really current is because Orianthi was playing the guitar. Isn't she everybody's guitar player these days? She's like that. She's like everywhere, like that dancing baby was in the 1990s. Next was Kris Allen singing his new single, The Truth. I was starting to wonder if they were going to let him come on and promote his new CD this season because we haven't really seen him. So I thought it was about time. It started out rough. Like that sentence just started out rough. But that wasn't really Chris's fault. It's because they left Ryan Seacrest's microphone on and we got to hear him yammer on while Kris was trying to sing. Those clowns running the show. I don't think it was the best we've seen of Kris, but he still outdid all of this season's contestants. He's already had a hit single with Live Like We're Dying, and the song is well on its way to becoming his second hit single. Now I know he hasn't sold as many CDs as Adam Lambert, but look at the promotion that he's gotten in comparison. The difference is just staggering. I know a lot of Adam Lambert fans were furious that he wasn't asked to be on the finale, but, I mean, he's already been a mentor. He already came on to perform. What else do you want? He didn't win. So I think he's gotten more perks than Kris has. I think that is just one of the many things that's wrong with the show at this point. Why should a Crystal Bowersox fan spend 4 hours voting for her when they know that the producers are going to stand behind their favorite and promote them more regardless of who wins? We saw it with Ruben versus Clay. We saw it with Taylor Hicks and Chris Daughtry, and with Kris and Adam, and there's really no longer an incentive to win. And if there's no incentive to win, there's no incentive to vote. And if there's no incentive to vote, there's no incentive to watch. So as much as I wanted Crystal to win over Lee, and as much as I thought she'd make a more interesting winner, I do hope that Dewyze, as the winner, gets more promotion and better treatment than Kris Allen did. Otherwise, I don't expect the show to last more than a couple of more seasons. Next was the first of what felt like a million tributes to Simon Cowell. Part 2 of the long list of things that are wrong with the show. They try to focus too much on the judges. Now, the judges are a great part of the show, and they're entertaining to watch, and they're moderately important, but Simon alone has not carried the show for 9 seasons. I mean, we've seen, and even though he's still there this season, the ratings are taking a nosedive. And a lot of people attribute that to Paula Abdul being gone, but the season started out pretty strong. It was only when we found out that we had crap contestants that the season went to hell. Look at the early seasons. They did great, and the only judge that people knew was Paula Abdul. You can't say she made the show. So it wasn't Simon that made the show, it was the show that made Simon. Anyway, next was Siobhan, Aaron, and what's left of the Bee Gees singing How Deep Is Your Love. I love that song. Have you ever heard that song before? I used to work at a grocery store and they played that in there about 3 times a day, but I did still like it. You know, sometimes when you hear a song too much, you don't like it anymore, but that's not one of them. I thought it would have been more interesting to see the Bee Gees perform with Casey, since he kind of looks like a young Barry Gibb minus the beard. I'm not a Siobhan Magnus fan, but a big part of me was hoping that her and Barry Gibb would have a high-pitched showdown. I thought that would have been interesting. Next was Michael Lynche and Michael McDonald singing "We're Taking It to the Streets." Now, I mean, it was a good performance, but at this point, the show would just, I mean, it felt so old. It was almost ridiculous how old it felt. I think I actually saw Michael McDonald in concert about 10 years ago. I can't quite remember if it was him or not. It was a whole, like, group of nobodies, and then a couple of former somebodies that were not somebodies anymore. And somebody sang this song, and I can't remember if it was him or I don't know. Next was Dane Cook singing a lame song called "Simon Said." I thought it was quite dull until a bunch of former rejects came there and took the microphone from him. That girl with the fat stomach that like jumped up and down in front of the mirror. The "I Am Your Brother" dude, Tatiana Del Toro, and some other dude that hijacked the microphone from Dane Cook, who later tweeted that he got Kanye'd. Then they cut to commercial, so I guess it kind of was unexpected, but Dane Cook should thank them because they made his performance a whole lot more interesting than it started out. Next, the tuneless ladies of the top 12 started into a Christina Aguilera medley, starting with Lacey Brown. It showed the clear divide between Crystal Bowersox and the other ladies, and it proved that Randy Jackson and Carrie DioGuardi were wrong when they compared Katie Stevens to Christina Aguilera. Siobhan, Katie, and Didi, though, they did do well with "Fighter," but it's more of a shouting song, so Siobhan did especially well with that, and that's more the kind of music she needs to do, stuff where she could just do nothing but shout. Then Christina Aguilera came out looking like Princess Leia dipped in a vat of peroxide, but she proved that the comparisons given of her on the show were complete crap, because she sang "You Lost Me," and I thought the song was boring as hell, but she went a long way to dispel the rumors that she's trying to imitate Lady Gaga. She was great. And it was pretty good, even though I didn't like the song. Next was Ricky Gervais. He was there by satellite to talk about Simon Cowell. I have no idea who this man is. Next was the guys of the top 12 singing a Hall and Oates medley. I thought Casey and Tim were the glue that held this performance together. The guys, though, they moved like robots. Well, broken ones. But then Hall and Oates came out and they moved like, well, broken old men. Now, I know the whole gist of having guest performers on is all about ratings. You know, they have people that don't generally watch the show to tune in because somebody they want to see is going to be on there. But I doubt that many husbands were sitting at home saying, "Honey, we have to watch American Idol tonight. Hall & Oates is going to be performing." I doubt it. Next was Crystal Bowersox and Alanis Morissette. I thought this was a great duet for Crystal, and she actually sounded better than Alanis Morissette, and this is the perfect type of music for her. But unfortunately, Alanis Morissette hasn't really had a hit in the last 10 years, and that's what makes me think that there is not a market for Crystal Bowersox. I was kind of hoping that she would win and bring back the girl power of the late 90s, you know, the girls with guitars, but that was a stretch anyway. I giggled when they changed the lyrics, though, to "Would she go down with you to the theater?" That's going to be my new pickup line. "Hey, you want to go down with me to the theater?" Lame. Just like this season. Next was Carrie Underwood singing her new single, "Undo It." Why is everything that comes out of this woman's mouth so infectious? It's like the herpes. I mean, I haven't been able to get this song off my mind since I heard it, and it was actually the first time I heard it, so even if Cara DioGuardi did have a hand in writing it, I want to see her in October. She's going to be around here. Not Cara DioGuardi. Not Cara DioGuardi, Carrie Underwood. Anyway, moving on. Next, Kris Allen presented Crystal and Lee with their new Ford Fiestas. And it's the ones that they designed earlier in the season. And they could not have been less enthusiastic if they had been diagnosed with a terminal disease. I mean, they almost seemed bummed out by getting a new car. I mean, I'm no fan of the fake excitement thing. But I thought Crystal had never watched the show. I thought they really didn't watch the show. So they should have been excited, and it should have come as a surprise to them. I mean, I'm not an actor, but when I was 8 years old, one year for my birthday, when I was 8, my grandparents got me a He-Man figure that I already had. But I pretended to enjoy it. I pretended to like it. I pretended like I had never had it before. So it really isn't that hard. Next was Casey James and Bret Michaels singing Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And I was a little bit surprised to see Bret Michaels there. It's nice to see him doing better. I used to love this song when I was a kid. I'd sit and wait hours for it to come on the radio, and then I'd record it and on my cassette recorder, and I'd play it over and over and over until it would wear out and the tape player would eat my cassette. Isn't modern technology so nice? You know, we don't have to worry about our computers or our iPods eating our music. So that's kind of nice. I thought this was a great performance. I loved the way that Casey sang this song. I think if he had sang it himself earlier in the season, he could have possibly had a moment with it. The performance, though, got about the biggest applause of the night, but it wasn't for the performance as much as it was for Bret Michaels making a trip back from death's doorstep. I don't want to sound rude or anything, but does anybody else get the feeling that all of his problems came from all that stuff that he has on his head? Now, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I know a lot of people that have long hair, and they get headaches quite often because hair is a lot heavier than it looks. And with me, when I wear a hat, if I wear it for more than an hour or two, my head starts to hurt. Now, he's got the handkerchief and the hat and all the long hair and all that. And not to mention that the majority of his music makes my head hurt. So, I wonder if that contributed to his problems. But anyway, it's nice to see him do it better. I bet, though, when he goes home, he's as bald as Chris Daughtry. Next was Dewyze in Chicago singing a medley. I don't know who was straining more, Lee or that trombone, that little old man that was playing trombone. I used to play the trombone in middle school until I flunked out of band class. And I thought I was going to pass out every time I played it. That is a hard instrument to blow in. Never did have to learn how to play that stupid trombone. Next was General Larry Platt performing Pants on the Ground. Now this was probably my favorite performance of the night. Well, I knew all season that he was going to be on the finale singing this song, but I never in a million years expected to see William Hung doing a duet with him. And it's kind of sad to say that now, even though as long as I've known that Larry Platt was going to sing this song on the finale, I never expected it was going to be one of the more youthful, current, relevant songs on the finale. Isn't that sad? Next was another tribute to Simon and the grand introduction of Miss Paula Abdul. I thought she looked lovely, and it was nice to see her back on the show, just as kooky as she ever was. Her jokes, though, they were super lame. She should leave the comedy to Ellen DeGeneres. Nobody laughed at her jokes. I thought that was a little bit awkward and embarrassing for her, and got a little uncomfortable, but she was surprisingly coherent, though. She should leave the prepared speech skills to somebody that can give a prepared speech, and I'm not one of them, but she should really do that because she's not very good at it. Neither am I. I thought they should have done a surprise tribute to her, look back at her time on the show and all her weirdness. Because, I mean, I know she hasn't been on there all season, but they never had a proper going away for her since she was just left. Next, all the past winners, minus David Cook, came out to perform together. I thought it was great to see them all together. Did anybody else laugh, though, when Fantasia came out? I mean, the contrast between Kelly and Ruben and then her, their voices, it just made me giggle. I don't know why. David Cook, though, should be ashamed of himself for not being there. He kind of ruined the moment. Well, I know he was performing. He tweeted later that he was performing for a charity, but that's no excuse. Now, 6 months ago, when the finale was going to be, and you were a former winner of the show, you should have freed yourself up for the finale. They should all do that every season. Then a bunch of the past contestants came out to join them, all dressed in white. Next, Simon came on to give his goodbye speech. Now, if he were really honest, he would have said, "I'm humiliated to be going out on such a lame season. Forget this tired-ass show. Join me next season for the X Factor." But he didn't do that, obviously. Next, Janet Jackson sang nothing. I thought she sounded great. I wasn't crazy about her new hairdo, though. She looked like a boy, but she sounded just like her brother. I kind of wish they had done a tribute to him because, I know he's been gone almost a year, but that doesn't mean he should be forgotten. I thought Janet, though, could have done well to end on a high note instead of lip-syncing Nasty Boys. That kind of ruined the whole performance for me because she was doing so well, and then she starts lip-syncing and shouting, and you could hardly hear her shouting. Next was Crystal and Lee performing with Joe Cocker. I laughed until tears were running down my face when Lee Dewyze came out singing, "What Would You Do If I Sang That a Tune?" I mean, that was so appropriate. And what would have been more appropriate, though, is when he said, "Would you stand up and walk out on me?" Everyone in the Nokia Theater should have stood up and headed for the door, because it's kind of what should have happened. Now, I know that Joe Cocker is a legend, but the whole performance was hilarious, actually. Especially when he started doing that holler. My mom called me. She thought it was a joke. I thought it was hilarious. It was very funny. Now, I thought it was an appropriate final performance for the season, for this wacky season. Since all year they've been told to be current and relevant, and they've been given such old material to work with, and it seems only fitting that their final performance be with a 70-year-old man. So finally, onto the results. Dewyze is the winner. Not a surprise, but, you know, I think Crystal would have made a more interesting winner, because she's a winner like we've never had before. And Lee, we've had like 3 seasons of Dewyze now, except he's not the best one. He's like David Cook ultralight. I think people are starting to think that the only people that can win the show is a white boy with a guitar. I think it would probably be easier for a woman to become president of the United States than to become the next American Idol, because I think ever since they started allowing instruments, it's been a white boy with a guitar. I think they should really cut that out. Cut out the instruments, because look back to season 5. Chris Daughtry had to convince you that he was a rock star without the guitar, without all the shenanigans. He just had to stand there with a microphone and convince you that he was a rock star, and he did a pretty good job at it. Now, the other ones can't really say that. They kind of hide behind their guitars, and it doesn't do them any justice when they win the show, because what are you winning for? So anyway, within the next week, we're going to look back at the top 10 best and worst performances and try to look at maybe what should happen next season, what I want to see happen next season, to make the show a little bit better anyway. I want to thank all of you for subscribing to me this season, and some of you have been with me since season 6. That's like 4 seasons now. But I've got a lot of new subscribers this season. I don't often say thank you for this, because I know a lot of people who, you know, they get a few subscribers and then all they do is make thank you videos, and 10 minutes out of their video say, "Thank you so much for subscribing," and it kind of gets boring. So I don't ever want to do that, but then I don't feel like I say thank you enough. So I'm saying it now. Don't get used to it. I'll see you folks later.